I was so stupid not to realize that that's wrong.
I don't understand what part of this isn't resonating with a lot of white people, but
You can only be a racist if you have the power to institutionalize what you're...
Any significant time in the United States without developing opinions on...
We live inside systems that were built by white people for.
There's no such thing as reverse racism.
If you go into their homes and you hear the things they say.
Okay, so in honor of Juneteenth, a day that celebrates Black freedom, I'm bringing you a group of fed up white Americans, or better still, white American women, turning the camera on themselves and their fellow white Americans to lash out and call out the racism that Black America still faces today. This is their brutally raw and honest lash outs.
My parents were racist. I didn't catch on to it till I was in college, but they were raised that way. My husband's parents were racist, but they were raised that way, and they never saw how evil it was. I remember in grade school, going to a water fountain, and it was for the whites and for the blacks. Why didn't I know then that it was wrong? The water's the same for everybody. Why was it like that? I was so stupid not to realize that that's wrong. Wrong, 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 wrong.
This might be a hot take, but if you're someone who doesn't want to talk about race as a white person, then you're racist. I don't understand what part of this isn't resonating with a lot of white people, but I'm sick and fucking tired, because do you remember all of those bullying assemblies that we had to sit through as a kid? Where they would say, if you are a bystander, you are just as bad as the bully because you could step in, you could do something. It's the same thing, because you are being complicit in a problem that you could easily use your voice to fucking combat. Not to mention, true equality and cultural competence means that you recognize the inherent differences in each demographic of people and you celebrate them. It shouldn't be, oh, I guess I accept you in spite of where you're from. It's, I accept you, period, no matter what your customs are, no matter whether you conform or assimilate to American standards. Not wanting to talk about race, thinking anti-racist training is stupid or DEI is stupid means that you do not want to take the time to educate yourself on what these things actually mean and the difference that they make in communities of color. White people have taken resources and drained these communities for so fucking long. The least we can do is have these conversations.
I'm obviously white. I grew up in a conservative white family, and I know there's been a lot of discourse about whether white people should talk about racism, and here's my argument for why I think that not only should we, but we have to. A lot of racism in white families occurs behind closed doors. I've been over at friends' parents' places and heard them say some pretty obscene things about people of color, assuming that I am on their side simply because I am white. Obviously, this makes for some awkward conversations when I do call them out, but point being, the depths of the racism and the darkness that seeps in deeply into these families can only, in my opinion, truly be exposed by other white people, because they will never be their full racist selves around anyone who is not white. They like to save face publicly and say that they're not racist, but then again, if you go into their homes and you hear the things they say, that would suggest otherwise. I just encourage you, if you're a white person and you know people like this, please say something. Don't just ignore it for fear of conflict.
Now, we often hear about reverse racism now.
There's no such thing as reverse racism. There's no such thing as reverse racism. You can only be a racist if you have the power to institutionalize what you're doing to people who are different from you. What we're calling reverse racism is natural reaction to being treated unfairly on the basis of somebody else's ignorance.
Why do white people always get accused of being racist? Great question. When people say we're racist, they're often pointing to this. We live inside systems that were built by white people for white people. And most of us were never taught to see those systems, let alone challenge them. Racism isn't just slurs or hate. It's who gets hired, who gets stopped, who gets protected, and who doesn't. And we benefit from that structure, whether we intend to or not. So when we're accused of being racist, it's often not about personal hate, it's about unacknowledged patterns. It's about how silence, defensiveness, and our lack of awareness uphold harm. I'm not here to shame anyone. I'm doing this work too. But we won't get free by being offended. We get free by getting honest.
If you are not sure that all white people have opinions on racism, just bring it up the next time you're around a bunch of white people. Not only do we all have opinions, but they tend to be very emotionally charged And that has nothing to do with whether they're informed or not. I have an opinion on virtually everything. That does not make them informed. I don't believe you can grow up or spend any significant time in the United States without developing opinions on racism. And they will be emotional and strongly held. And again, that has nothing to do with whether they're informed. And in fact, if you are white and you have not devoted years of sustained study, struggle, and focus on this topic, your opinions are necessarily very limited.
You say that all whites are racist. Can you expound on that?
Any white person who was born, raised, and schooled in the United States of America, if you aren't a racist, you're a miracle. Either that or you decided to educate yourself. Because education in this country is about white is right, brown's all right, black's got to stand back. Yellow's mellow, but whites, we educate in a way that says that white males have done all the adventures, have made all the adventures, have done all the discovering, have made everything that is good and has been accomplished according to social studies, which is actually anti-social studies, by white males. It's a lie. But we do that in order to maintain the myth of white superiority. The myth of race has to be maintained at all costs in this country. Because if white people have to give up the color of their skin as being something that makes them perfect, what do they have left? If we start teaching the truth about history, if we start teaching about Nile Valley contributions to civilization, it will totally change the way we conduct ourselves in the classroom. It will have to. Columbus didn't discover America. You can't discover a place where people are already living. But we celebrate that every October. It's a lie. We need to get over it. We need to stop telling the myths and start telling the truth.
How white people act when you call them out on their racism. You know, the excuses always come. One, oh, I'm not racist. I have black friends. It was just a joke. Stop being so sensitive. I can't believe you think I'm being racist. I'm like the least racist person I know. God, I don't even see colour. I just see people. Do any of these sound familiar? If you're white and you've said this, or you've heard this, then you're part of the problem. We cannot be complicit anymore. Instead of getting defensive, we need to listen, learn, and reflect to do better. Racism isn't just about bad people. It's about the systems that we uphold.
I moved a lot growing up, and each time I moved, it was a very different environment. Some places were more diverse, some places were more homogenous and white, some places were religious and more Catholic, other places weren't. And one of the things that remained pretty constant was going over to people's homes and hearing, honestly, racist comments made about people of color, whether they were super minor comments or they were slurs being said. And the first time this happened, I was 10 or 11 years old. I was living in a small town in California, and it was a place where a lot of immigrants come to when they first come to the US, right? I was over at this girl's house, and her mom was an immigrant from South Africa, and that was the first time that I ever heard the N-word. I didn't understand the context, I didn't understand what was happening, and I remember Googling, what does this mean? And that was the first moment that I realized this is such a learned behavior, and not only is it a local issue with like people in my community, but it was global. I mean, this woman had come from across the fucking world, and that is why I'm going to continue to encourage white people, no matter how uncomfortable, no matter how awkward, you have no fucking excuse. If you hear the remark, say something.